Hello, Science Alliance! It is me, Lara, from Theatre of Science. It's the LEGO Storytime show. So unlike my live streamed lessons that I do also for free, like this, IGCSE Physics and All Ages Science, or sometimes Shakespeare, there are no printouts for this one. This is a chat about a thing I've been researching, and then we do an activity and we do a LEGO Storytime. Here's the LEGO Story Show, which is going to be at the end. You ready? Oh, by the way, I'm dressed as Marie Curie. Come on, I think the word you're looking for is uncanny. Yeah, a couple of weeks ago in a lesson, someone commented something like, oh yeah, well, boys are more interested in dinosaurs than girls are. And I couldn't believe that people are still thinking that in 2024. But it's everywhere. Like, my daughter is 5. She's only been on the planet for 5 years. And if you say to her dentist, like the word dentist, she just thinks of a man straight away, even though she's only had one dentist and her dentist is a woman, and actually over half of dentists in the whole of the UK now are women, but she still thinks of a man. Like, where does it come from? It's so pervasive. So this is kind of just what we're going to be chatting about today. We always do an activity, so I have an activity for you. I've said, could you please bring a ruler and a food can and a calculator, maybe a pen and pencil. Some of you are going to find this ridiculously hard. Do not worry about it. That is what I was expecting. I'm just going to put a little challenge on the screen for you. Oh, you need some wool, because we're doing an activity later as well. So if you've got a piece of wool, that would be good. Calculator, ruler. I'm going to put this challenge on the boards. I'm going to count to 10 and see if you can complete the challenge. And then we'll move on and it'll be fun, honestly. So don't worry. I'm kind of expecting that you won't be able to do this challenge. All you need to know is that the circumference is the distance around your can, all right? So you get what I mean? Like in centimetres, how long is the circumference of your can? All right, here we go. So your challenge, should you choose to accept it. Can you find the circumference of your can, please? What is the distance if you go all the way around your can? So I've given you some clues. Circumference equals 2 pi r. Pi equals 3.141592, etc. You don't need to put all those numbers into your calculator. Yeah, and there's a ruler. Right, off you go. I'll count to 10. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3. Are you doing it? I should have said if you don't want to do it, you don't have to do it. 3, 2, 1. All right. So what I was hoping that what a lot of you would do would be thinking, well, I can't do this. I'll just wait. If I'd said to you, can you use a piece of wool and a ruler to work out what the distance around your can, the circumference of your can, would you have been able to do that? I mean, maybe some of you spotted it anyway, but can you think of how you would use a piece of string and a ruler and your can to work out the distance of the can? That's quite easy, isn't it? Like, some of you will have done it before. You just get a piece of wool, you put it around your can, and then you just measure the piece of wool. So you could do that in less than 10 seconds. I'm going to do it now. I reckon that's only taken me maybe 7 seconds to find out that the circumference of my can is, I don't know, about 22 centimetres. The point of what I was trying to get at is, if you think something is going to be really hard or not for you, then we tend not to try to do it. So let's get on to science and girls and stuff. In 2011, 23,811 boys did A-level physics, and just over 6,000 girls did A-level physics. So that's like the big exam that you do when you're sort of about 17 in Britain. Why was that? Why do so many more boys choose A-level physics? Well, there's loads of complicated reasons that we can't go into today. I think quite a big clue is the fact that girls were much more likely to choose A-level physics if they went to an all-girls school. So girls who were just surrounded by girls and learned science just with other girls were more likely to choose A-level physics than girls that had been mixed in with boys. And obviously, yeah, it's quite complicated, but I suspect that's because even from a really, really, really young age, we are teaching children that that girls can't do physics. It's more a boys thing. If you're a girl in a classroom and you start out answering questions and then you sort of learn from the teacher or maybe from society that actually this is more boys' subject, eventually the girls just kind of start letting the boys answer the questions, and the boys are more likely to volunteer for stuff, and the girls just kind of end up sitting back. I've seen this in my classroom as well. It's very sad. I think possibly women's football is quite a good comparison. I don't know if you know this, but like at the moment, women's football, really popular, right? Everyone's watching it on TV, everyone's talking about it. I think most of us are finding the game very exciting. Women's football was really popular in the past. There's a poem from 1580 that mentions women playing football. "A time there is for all, my mother often says, when she with skirts tucked very high with girls at football plays." So girls loved football in the past. During World War I, women started wearing trousers, gasp, and it really took off. It was very popular. And then in 1921, the FA just banned it. They said it was, quote, "quite unsuitable for females and ought not to be encouraged." I don't know if anyone asked the females, but they just decided that women shouldn't play football anymore. It was bad for their health. And so that was in 1921. And I'm sure a lot of your adults, like when I was at school, girls just didn't play football. Like in PE, the girls would go off and do hockey and netball, and the boys would go off and do football and rugby. I don't know if I'd said, "Oh, please, can I play football?" They would have let me. Like maybe they would, but I just learned that it just wasn't for me. So it wasn't even just that I didn't feel like I'd be good at it. It just kind of didn't hit my radar, you know? So I want you to look at this article, which is on the Science Museum's website. I love the Science Museum, really. But there's this article that just really winds me up. It's about the Royal Society. So the Royal Society, big group of men in the 1600s who got together in London. They were all really interested about sort of science and how the world works. They were all white men. So it's an article talking about all the different men who were in the Royal Society and how good the Royal Society is. And then there's this paragraph here, and I want you to read this paragraph and think, what does this make you? What does this make you think about women in science, reading this paragraph? I don't want to ask them, that's just my question. Just what are you're reading this, you get to this paragraph, how does it make you feel about women in science? Are you thinking, oh, women can do science, women can't do science? What are you thinking? There have been over 8,000 fellows and members of the Royal Society, 8,000 fellows since the Society's foundation in 1660, including over 280 Nobel laureates, people who've won the really big top Nobel Prize. Among the famous names to carry the prestigious title FRS, like Fellow of the Royal Society, are Isaac Newton, Albert Einstein, Michael Faraday, Charles Darwin, Ernest Rutherford, Dorothy Hodgkin, Alan Turing, Anne Maclaren, and Stephen Hawking. So just tell me, how many of those people have you heard of? Anything else you notice about those names? And how does it make you feel about women in science? What do you think you've learned about women in science from that list? If it's underlined, then it means that you can click on it, and it takes you through to a lovely page where you find out more information about that person, by the way. So straight away you'll have noticed, obviously, there are more men than women. There's 7 men listed there and 2 women. And Anne Maclaren isn't underlined. So I don't know. I think what they're trying to do is to put in some women's names to be like inclusive and to say, look, women can do science because here are women's names. And also, like, Anne Maclaren and Dorothy Hodgkin are incredible scientists who deserve to be recognised. But isn't it a bit weird that they're saying that these are famous names and Anne Maclaren isn't even underlined? Like, she's the only one that isn't underlined, so you can't even find out anything else about her. I worry that we talk a lot about, and it's a really good thing, we're getting really good at talking about women in science who have been forgotten. Like, we'll talk a little bit about Mary Anning, for example, very, very famous paleontologist who we've sort of rediscovered quite recently, and now we talk about her all the time. But we don't really talk about the fact that most women just couldn't do science. It's kind of like me with football. It wasn't that they weren't interested in it, maybe, or that they weren't good at it. It was just that it didn't even, like, it just wasn't a thing that women did. So I sort of feel like there needs to be a thing on the website saying, by the way, there's only two names here because most women just weren't doing it. Like, they hadn't been allowed to do it, and then, yeah. So, I don't know. I just worry that you're going to look at that and think, oh, okay, so women could do science, they just don't. Like, maybe because they're not. Anyway, let's have a little look about the history of education, and then I'll tell you some results of some very cool studies. So in the 1500s, women generally are taught to be good wives and look after the household, all right? Men do business, and women they're not really educated at all, apart from the things that are going to make them a good wife or a good hostess if people come round to their home. So they're taught to do music, they're taught languages, they're taught how to read, so they can read the Bible, they're taught needlework, things that will make them useful to men, basically. Actually, by the end of the 1600s, some people are starting to teach their daughters more. Oh, there should not be apostrophe there, I do apologise. So that they can run their businesses. And then in the Georgian period, we get this thing called the separate spheres theory, which I hadn't heard of. The Georgians, bless them, in the 1800s, so only really kind of like maybe 8 generations ago, your great, etc. grandma, they just decided that men should be in charge of everything outside the house and women should be in charge of everything inside the house. It sounds quite fair, right? Because, like, you're both in charge of a thing, except outside the house, obviously, much bigger, much more going on than what is happening inside the house. So, kind of like me in football, I guess, women are just brought up by women who've been taught that this is what you're in charge of and you do the cooking and the cleaning or whatever and the household management, which was a big deal in itself. So women just generally don't have any access to science at all, because it's just not a useful thing to be doing, and it's not the done thing in society. And like that first activity, there's loads of evidence to suggest that if you don't think something's for you, you don't do very well at it, and you don't try at it. So they've done activities with kids where they've given children an activity to do, and everyone's done it and enjoyed it, and then they give them a second, slightly harder activity to do, and they say something like, oh, boys are very good at this activity. And as soon as they said, boys are very good at this activity, a lot of the girls, like 12.5% of the girls, just sort of couldn't do it, or performed a lot worse, I should say. So the first activity, when they thought it was just an equal thing, everyone did very well. And as soon as the girls heard, boys are very good at this, the girls became less good at it. It's really weird. So there's loads of written notes, because there's loads of studies here, and it's just fascinating, because partly the way that we talk to girls and boys is just so totally different. So mothers, apparently, if they know the sex of their child, like if a woman knows that she's having a male baby, and she's describing the movements, she's more likely to say that it's a very vigorous baby and that it's very strong. Whereas a mother who doesn't know if the child is a boy or a girl is less likely to say those things. They did experiments. I would love to have seen this. They got, I don't know why it's always mothers, but it was. They got mothers to watch their babies crawling, like up and down ramps, doing dangerous things on ramps and stuff. And then they got the mothers to say how good they thought their baby was at crawling. And then scientists went in and watched the same baby and decided how good they thought it was. And the mothers were much more likely to say that their boy babies were good at crawling, and say that the girls were less good. But when the scientists went in, they didn't see any difference. Mothers were marking the boys higher on like physical stuff, because again, we're all part of this education system that has just taught us that boys are just better at that kind of thing. But there was no evidence that they were. There's a study where women who are playing computer games, if they know that their sex is going to be like anonymous, if no one knows if they're a man or a woman, they're much more aggressive. But if they know that their sex has been written down, they become less aggressive. Like, oh, I've got to act more like a woman, because otherwise it would look bad. I don't know, but it does. It feels like this is what we're getting taught. Right. So I'm going to be annoyed if I miss out any of the studies that I read about. Yeah. Right. Just okay. This phrase, girls are as good as boys. So it's a very common thing. It really winds me up, actually. Quite a lot of the time people will say, girls can do science too, or girls are as good as boys at science. And studies have shown now this is not a good thing to say. Because if I say to you, Mark's cake was as good as Brian's. That kind of makes you feel like Brian's a cake expert and Mark's done really well because he has achieved this level of Brian. So saying girls are as good as boys makes it sound like it's standard for boys to be good. So saying girls and boys are equally as good at science is a more useful thing to say. When do you reckon women could first get degrees? So obviously we're talking about science, but there's a lot of things that you can't do in life if you haven't got a degree in terms of jobs. When could women first get degrees? It's different with different universities. It's not all the same. So the very first proper degree that a woman could get in Britain was in 1878 from the University of London. So what's that? About 150 years ago. So if you think that one generation is 25 years, that's actually only 6 generations ago, isn't it? In Oxford University, obviously one of the best famous ones, it was 1920, and Cambridge University, 1948. Women could only get degrees from Cambridge in 1948. And it wasn't like, this is not a choice, right? They're just not allowed in. Why are they not allowed in? Because men are in control of everything. Women aren't making the decisions. 1948! And there's this idea, I think, we will go to Lego story time in a sec. There's this idea that, so in 1948, women could just go along to Cambridge University and get degrees and there was nothing stopping them. But again, obviously, if you've been raised in a house where no women went to university when your parents were kids, they're far less likely to send you on to university, right? Like, I'm not recommending TikTok to my children because I don't really understand TikToks. It's a new thing. Like, if your pet mum didn't go to uni and your grandma didn't go to university and her grandma didn't go to university, you're not likely to suddenly rush off to university. And there's horrible stories about men being really angry that women were getting allowed in as well. So the male students, at least on one occasion, stood outside the exam room. Imagine how nervous you are before an exam anyway. Women coming in to take their exam were getting abuse hurled at them and stuff thrown at them. And when they were in the exam, writing the exam in the early days of women getting a degree, some male students, I'm sure some of them were very supportive, but some male students opened the door and let some farm animals into the room. I can't even. I mean, what? Right. Should we do story time before I get too ranty? And then I'll tell you about a couple more studies after that. Okay. Coffee. Put my calculator there. All right. Let's do this. Imagine an incredible fancy dress party. People from all over the world coming together to admire each other's fancy dress costumes, discuss them, maybe learn more about fancy dress. There's a huge competition in the middle of the party and the winners become famous and are talked about for hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of years. Now imagine that women, generally didn't get an invite to this party, but some women did find out about it and they turn up and they've worked hard to make their beautiful costumes and they find that they're just not allowed to get in. The door is shut. What happens? Well, most of them would walk away, take their costumes off and do something else. So it has been for women trying to get into science. Marie Curie had to move to a different country because women in her country weren't allowed to go to university. Her father was a maths and physics teacher who taught her at home. It's kind of like her sneaking through the window to get to the party, and then it turns out she's got a costume so good that they decide to let her stay. Although in fact the judges still, for the Nobel Prize, the real science prize, the judges did try to give her Nobel Prize to her husband, and he had to explain, no, it had been Marie Curie who'd been in charge. So she did end up getting the prize. In fact, she was the first person to win 2 Nobel Prizes. Mary Anning, another very famous female scientist that we talk about now, she had to learn about fossils when her dad died because that was how her family were going to make money. She became such an expert that male scientists would ask her for help, But because she was a woman in the 1800s, she wasn't allowed to go to university or join the Geological Society. I guess in our little analogy that we're doing here, it's like she had such a good costume that people from the party kept coming out of the party to ask her, hey, how do you make that costume? It's awesome. And then I can go back and tell all the people in the party how you made the costume. I don't know, maybe in our story she gets to go to the party, but she definitely wasn't allowed to win a prize, sadly. We've got better at talking about women like Mary Anning, women who did amazing things for science, the women who managed to get into the party. We're not very good at remembering that most women didn't have a chance to get good at science. The women who didn't get an invitation, or the women who got turned away. In the 1920s, Einstein was a winner. Everyone had heard about his incredible theory of relativity, and he and his wife Elsa had travelled America and were very well known there. They were household names. He was on the top of his game. It wasn't until the 1980s, when 51 letters between Einstein and another woman were published, that people realised Einstein had a wife before Elsa. Mileva Maric had moved to Switzerland because that's where women were allowed to go to university, and aged 20 had started a course for maths and physics teachers. And there were 4 other people on the course. They were all men, and one of them was the 17-year-old Einstein. They fell in love and would study together at Maric's house. And they wrote a lot of letters to each other this time when they were away from each other. One of the letters that Einstein wrote said, it seemed so odd that you were not at my side. He'd just learned about a new physics idea. It seemed so odd that you were not by my side. I find the work we do together very good, healing, and also easier. One of her letters tells him about a physics lecture she'd been to. One of Einstein's letters to her became very famous. We'll talk about why in a sec. He says, I'll be so happy and proud when we are together and can bring our work on relative motion to a successful conclusion. If you've been watching my all ages Shakespeare lessons, what's a word here that you think might be causing a lot of discussion later on? Our work on relative motion. So at the end of term, Maric's grade was 4.35 out of 6, and Einstein's was 4.65. He sort of talks about her being his equal. A Serbian science professor had written a book about Maric in the 1960s. The book says that Maric was much better at maths than Einstein and helped him a lot. Maybe she even should have shared his Nobel Prize. Once the letters were discovered, 2 scientists looked at the letters and read this book, and lots of articles and blogs started copying what the book said and what these 2 scientists said. The problem is there really isn't a lot of proof for their claims. So, for example, it says that Maric helped Einstein and his friend to build a machine for measuring electricity. But letters between Einstein and Einstein's friend and the article that was published about the machine don't mention Maric at all. The book says, this book about Maric and how she was overlooked, says that actually she said that it was fine to not put her name on it because her and Einstein were really in love and they were like one person anyway. Maybe that's true. Or maybe she had absolutely nothing to do with the machine. We will just never know. Maric did not become a successful scientist in her own right. Einstein refused to marry her until he had a job, and then Maric got pregnant and failed to graduate. Eventually, they did get married, and Maric wrote to her friend, he is now regarded as the best of the German-speaking physicists, and they give him a lot of honours. I am very happy for his success, because he fully deserves it. I only hope and wish that fame does not have a harmful effect on his humanity. And a little bit later on she writes, with all this fame, he has little time for his wife. Maric had, she actually had 2 more children with Einstein, 2 sons, and he started cheating on her with Elsa, who he would eventually get married to. Elsa was his cousin, by the way. So Marich and their 2 sons, her and Einstein's sons, moved away. Now, when Einstein won the Nobel Prize, he was getting divorced to Marich, and he put the prize money for the Nobel Prize in a bank account under Marich's name. Some say that this is proof that he sort of knew that Marich deserved a share of the Nobel Prize. But it turns out actually she wasn't allowed to get the money out of the bank account without his permission. We think really he was intending that money to be for his sons, and that was sort of his way of making Marich feel better about the fact that she was divorcing him. She wrote to him saying that she thought she should have the money, and he wrote back extremely angrily this letter. Have you ever considered, even just for a second, that nobody would pay attention to you if the man you talked about had not accomplished something important? When someone is completely insignificant, there is nothing else to say to this person but to remain modest and silent. This is what I advise you do. Well, what about this quote from the early days when they were studying together and it was all lovey-dovey? I'll be so happy and proud when we are together and can bring our work on relative motion to a successful conclusion. This is the big piece of evidence used to show that Einstein relied on his wife. Well, quite a few scientific historians have pointed out that Einstein wrote this letter when Marich was really far away from him and feeling really stressed about the fact that they were apart, and it comes in a paragraph when he's telling her how much he loves her and how they'll be together soon. And they say that he's using the word our as like a term of endearment. A lot of the claims that Marich should have shared Einstein's Nobel Prize come from someone who said something to someone who said it to someone else long after it was supposed to have happened, and sadly you just can't use it as proof. Maybe it's silly to talk about it. There are plenty of women who did achieve fantastic things for science and were overlooked, who we have to focus on. Maybe Marich's story can help us remember the ones who never got a chance, the ones who didn't get the invite, and the ones who left the party without anyone knowing they were there. The end. Oh, I will get into the party because it is 2024. All right, and that's the end of that. I was really pleased to research that because obviously Facebook shows me a lot of science-related posts, and quite often if there's a post about a story of a woman in science who's being ignored, which is a fantastic story, and I always go to comment like, yeah, this is great. There's always a comment that says, yeah, and Einstein's wife actually should have got his Nobel Prize because she did all his work as well. And I always thought, I don't know if that's true, and I think it's really important that we get our facts right. Because if you start saying, oh, well, Einstein's wife was an amazing scientist, then it kind of, if that's wrong, then all the other arguments, people might think that they're wrong as well. But you can still think of her as a really sad example of someone who, because she was a woman, her getting pregnant wasn't even really Einstein's problem because it was the olden times. So yeah, she just didn't get a chance to even start her science career. Anyway. Right, so we've talked about why you shouldn't say girls are as good as boys, because that doesn't make it equal. There's this key moment, apparently, when children are about 6, when their ideas about the world start to change. So if scientists have done it, they've asked a load of 5-year-old children to think about people who are very, very, very clever. And all the children, when they're 5, just say that someone who's very, very clever, they imagine someone of their gender. So if it's a girl, they picture a girl who's very clever, and if it's a boy, they picture a boy who's very clever. When girls have got to 7, then they're much more likely than when they're 5 to think of it as a male who is clever. And so we're thinking that's probably because at the moment, it's everywhere, isn't it? Like if you go into Tesco's and you look at the boys' clothes and the girls' clothes, the boys' clothes are covered in science-related stuff like cars and rockets and astronauts and computer games. Oh yeah, I'll just tell you this before you go. So there's this famous thing that boys have got much better spatial awareness than girls. So boys can look at a shape and imagine like how it fits in if it spins around into different places, whereas girls apparently not as good at that. When I was a kid, there was this famous fact: girls can't draw bikes. They just can't draw them. If you're a girl, you just like that bit of your brain is missing, you can't draw a bike. So I looked it up, and actually there are some studies that show that boys are better at spatial awareness than girls. But the problem is there are so many other factors, like playing computer games makes you better at spatial awareness. And at the moment, like again, if you go into Tesco, look at the clothes, you will learn boys play computer games. Boys like Sonic and Mario and Minecraft, and girls like, I don't know, not a specific flower and unicorns and just hearts and stuff that says like, give me a hug. So boys are being pushed more towards computer games. So we haven't lived in a world really where it's like an even playing field. And also, like, if girls are growing up being taught you're not very good at spatial awareness, that'll make them less good at spatial awareness. So yeah, it's very difficult. I should have said earlier, none of this is good for boys either, right? Because there are plenty of boys who don't want to play computer games. They want a jumper with a heart on or an awesome unicorn, and they're feeling pushed towards this stuff. Like, there's a lot of evidence to show that, again, because people are describing like, oh, typical boys as being very kind of rough and tumble and wanting to fight. Boys are growing up feeling like they have to be sort of very aggressive, which is also not a good thing for society. Okay, I think I'm just slipping into ranting, so I'm going to finish the show there. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you for letting me perfect my Marie Curie outfit, because this is the second time I've dressed as her, and this one is much better. I'm going to go over to my Facebook page, because whenever I'm live on YouTube, then I always put a post up on Facebook saying you can put a comment here, and then I will say hello to you. So I'm going to go and say hello to people who are watching live. If you have enjoyed this and you want to support me and you would like stuff that I have written down, then you can support me and I will post you things. No one does that anymore. I'm going to post you Theatre of Science magazine if you sign up to support me. So if you go to my About section on YouTube, you can like and subscribe as well, actually. You should do that. If you go to my About section, you get this website called Coffee, or if you search Coffee Theatre of Science, then you can support me. You can send me £5 a month, and that is enough, because obviously there's a lot of you, that it pays my wages. But hopefully it's not that much from you for, you know, my output. And also, yes, I will send you some nice things. If you sign up today, I will send you some rainbow glasses. I can't find them because my child has been here, but oh, here they are. They make you see rainbows. They're very cool. And I'll send you a description of how they work. They're so good. I don't know why I just wear them every day. And I'll send you Theatre of Science magazine. It's well good. It's got loads of articles in it. The one that is coming up next is so overdue. I think it's going to be a special. I haven't said this yet, but Theatre of Science magazine is very late. It comes out whenever I've written it, but it is so overdue this time. So I'm going to, it's not even going to come in an envelope this time. It's going to come in a box and have stuff and things. So if you're already supporting me, it's just my way of saying I'm really sorry that this one was so late. But if you sign up now, you'll still get it. But I'm not going to be giving it to like new supporters when they sign up later, because I don't know, just that wouldn't be fair. They don't deserve it. But if you sign up now, I'll send you this little welcome pack with a past issue of Theatre of Science magazine, and then you will get the little box when it is ready. Okay, let's go and say hello. Let's go and say hello. It's taking longer than I thought to load, and I didn't have more to the song. Oh, comments! Hey, it's Alice. Howdy, Alice. Oh, Alice, thank you for saying that was a great Lego story. You just reminded me. My 5-year-old daughter wanted to watch it. Usually I've tidied it up by the time she comes home, but I have to thank you. I have to reset it so that she can see it. I'm glad you liked that one. I was a bit worried it might be a bit dry. It didn't have as much bird poo or fire as Lego Storytime usually has. Never heard of the woman scientist so annoying, such a fake attempt at being inclusive. Yeah, right? I think it is a fake attempt at being inclusive. I think it would be much better if just whenever you learned about scientists from the past, just a little box popped up to say, just a reminder, probably all the scientists you're going to hear about are men because women weren't allowed to study science. I think that would be more useful than going, oh, but here's a woman who did science and here's a woman who did science, because that's good, but it does make it feel like, well, it must have been possible because they did it. So other women just must not have must not have wanted to. And that's not what it was. Like, we have to celebrate people like Mary Kitts. Alice has made me rant, and they're the only comments I've read, sorry. But I agree. Hello. Oh, that's very nice. All right, Susan. I know it's not Susan, but hello. All right, Lana, I have a colouring book that says colouring book for girls. And it has an age limit. Oh, no, Lana. I bet I can't do your colouring book, can I? I love colouring in. I play video games. This is good. This is good. Yeah, my daughter asked to play a video game the other day, like yesterday, and I was like, no, you can't. Oh, wait, actually. Yeah, right, you can play Tetris. Oh, Humphrey's drawn an axolotl. If you've been to my axolotl show, you know that we say axolotl here at Theatre of Science, because that's how I say it. That is amazing. It looks like a Pokemon axolotl. Axolotls, gotta draw them. Oh my goodness, that is so cute. Oh, look at its little. Oh, that's awesome. Thank you so much, Humphrey. That has really just made me happy. I'm almost crying. I'm so happy. Jane, Daisy and Daniel. Oh, hello. You're back. Splendid. So glad girls have more opportunities in these modern times, although still not in many places in the world. Yes, that is something that we obviously didn't cover at all. It was incredibly Britain, nay, England-centric, wasn't it, this show? Yeah, right. But this is what I'm amazed by, that there's so many. I feel like I'm surrounded by people going, we've got to get girls into science. Girls can do science too. Let's go into secondary schools and do workshops for girls. And still, my 5-year-old, who has a physics teacher mum, will say that, oh yeah, boys are more interested in dinosaurs than girls. But again, it's like, it's everywhere. Baby clothes. Anyway, Isabel and Thomas are in Turkey but off to Rhodes tomorrow. I'll just cram in that in there. Oh, that's so awesome. Oh, have a lovely time. Hello, Ben. Good to see you. Are you wearing a dinosaur necklace? Yeah, I am actually. I actually have a sort of horrible phobia of jewellery. You will never, ever, ever see me wearing necklaces except this one dinosaur necklace that I made out of a toy dinosaur. I've got like a sort of polar neck jumper on, so it's okay. And I was just so dedicated to being Marie Curie that I had to do it. But I will be taking it off as soon as this show is over. Salutations, Lucian, son of Kerry Vert. Well, that's good that Lucian's come, because Lucian is a Viking, and you needed some education on this. You're probably just like going, burning people's villages down and shouting, women, get back in your hut, and that sort of thing. Oh, Viking. I don't actually know anything about the role of women in the Viking time. Boudica was, she was like a Celt, wasn't she? And she didn't fight. Did she fight their family? Oh, I don't know. I need the silly history boys here. All right, Ryder and Duaria. Hello. The other day I watched a film about women's football in 1971, and one girl climbed on top of her roof and jumped over to the next house. Wow. Wow. That's awesome, Violet. Wow, that's so cool. What? Lana's in Finland? What? You're near the Arctic Circle. I love that we just did the polar regions and now I know where the Arctic Circle is. It's snowing right now. I don't think it's fair that women couldn't do so much stuff, right? Oh, and Finley's there as well. Hello, Finley. Good to see you. Right, Violet. Hello, Taylor. Oh, it's Taylor. Sorry, Taylor. I forget. I can say your name. Hello. Hello, Imogen and Ophelia. I heard of Dorothy Crowfoot. Nice. Yeah. So that's another interesting thing that Violet has mentioned there. And thank you for cramming in that you read about it in Theatre of Science magazine. Yes, in the mould issue, isn't it? We told the comic about her. Hello, the 5th person here. Hello, Ed. My 6-year-old asked me the other day what my granddad did for a job. I replied he was a scientist. My son's response, wow, a scientist, even though he was a boy. Usually only girls are scientists. Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, your son has clearly, I don't know, been to one of these workshops or watched a very good YouTube video. What if the girl is home ed? That's a really interesting question. It's really interesting. And I suspect we don't probably have any data on it maybe we don't have any data on it at the moment, but the number of people home educating is just skyrocketing, isn't it? And when I suspect, because especially since COVID, there are so many, the government are going to have to start paying attention. I have to say, I don't know. They might have recorded it. But it will be really interesting to see what proportion of home educated children end up taking physics further. You would imagine it would be loads more, wouldn't you? Because you're not sat in a classroom where you can see boys and girls behaving in different ways. So hopefully, but I don't know. Ethan. All right, Ethan. Oh, hello, Sebastian. I love this pie song. It makes me sad that some great women are not mentioned. Yeah. Do you know what? Sebastian, I'm gonna start doing that. I think I'm gonna start highlighting that a bit more. That as well as mentioning women from science, we really have to mention the fact that they just couldn't do it. Like I say, like Marie Curie, her dad was a physics teacher and brought home stuff so that she could learn physics at home. We don't know how many Marie Curies there are out there who didn't have a dad who was a physics teacher, so would have been fantastic scientists, but just didn't even get an invitation. Edmund's great-great-grandmother was one of the first women in England to get a degree. No way, that's amazing. My grandma was the only A-level chemistry student at her school, and she was the first person from her village in Wales to go to university in 1946. Whoa! Tom, that's amazing. Yeah, a woman going to university to study chemistry in 1946. I mean, that is really unusual, isn't it? Whoa, okay. You've looked at an LED strip through your rainbow glasses. Oh, that's very interesting because white light is made of all the colours of the rainbow. So the rainbow glasses split white light into all the colours of the rainbow. But look what's happened to your LED. You have not got all the colours of the rainbow because what is it? Is that a green LED then? And you're just seeing the same green light lots of times. Because there's only green photons coming out of that LED. Interesting. Oh yeah, so what did Violet say? Oh no, Violet, I knew I'd forget. You said something and I thought, oh yeah, you're absolutely right. And now I can't remember. You said, hi Lara from Violet. It wasn't that. The other day I watched a film about women's football, climbed over a roof just to play. I don't think it was that. I'm not going to remember. Oh yeah, Dorothy Crowfoot. Yeah. Well, while we're at it, while we're getting into the you can leave, the show is over and we're just ranting. Yeah, her name was Dorothy Crowfoot. But you always see her mentioned as Dorothy Hodgkin. That's her married name. She was called Dorothy Crowfoot, and she wanted to be called Dorothy Crowfoot on her scientific papers as well. And she and her husband kind of agreed that was a good idea because he was nothing to do with her scientific papers. He was very supportive, but she had done the science. And I can't remember why we just started calling her by her married name, like her husband's second name, even though that's not what she wanted. Yeah, again, interesting example of men just deciding things for women. Okay, right. How'd I go? Is anyone going to give me anything else to rant about? I'll just refresh one last time. Right. Alice, I was just saying that's such a good point. Fake attempt at being inclusive. Yeah. How can you say, here are some really famous names, and then one of them, there's no more information? Yeah. Right. I'm going to go. And actually, I'm going to go and carry on writing Theatre of Science magazine. Someone has just signed up on coffee. Thank you. That absolutely makes my heart glow rainbows. I feel kind of bad about advertising the coffee at the moment because I feel like all my supporters who've been supporting me for years are going to be like, you get sent a magazine, do you? Do you? Well, yeah, you will. I'm going to go away and order some boxes and I will see you next week. So it's our last Lego Story Show of term next week. And then it's 2 weeks off for Easter. And our last all ages Shakespeare lesson as well next week before Easter, if you come to those. I feel like someone else commented, maybe not. Doesn't matter. I think it's Violet. I can just chat to you afterwards in the comments. Anyway, I'm just procrastinating. I really need to go and start working. Just going to refresh one more time. Oh yeah. It's just Violet saying bye. And Taylor saying bye as well. Bye bye. Why can girls not draw bikes? I know. I don't know. It's just because they got taught that they couldn't draw bike. I don't know. Go away and try and draw a bike. Enjoy the rest of your day and I'll see you soon. Bye.